911, what's the address or location of your emergency, please? I cannot understand you with all this screaming. Are you guys in danger right now? Are there any weapons at all?
No, there's no weapons. I think they're drugs.
We're coming up right here, North Range Crossing.
Hello?
Yes, this is 911. Okay, what is going on there?
We couldn't get hold of my sister and brother, right? My mom couldn't. I came over here. The door's unlocked.
Wait,
just
what?
woke up. Just woke up. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people.
Okay.
I don't know what kind of drugs they took.
It is going to be this apartment on the 3rd floor, on the left side, furthest left side here.
So are you willing to help me with CPR while they're en route to you?
Yeah.
Okay, I need you to go ahead and put me on speaker, okay?
Please.
Okay.
Pain. Stop. Stop.
Okay, so what I want you to do, hon, I want you to make sure that there's nothing under the head, okay? They're coming as fast as they can, okay?
Like that. Can you guys get here, please?
Yes, we are getting there as fast as we can. We have to come with the right kind of help to you guys because there's so many people, okay?
I have Narcan in the car.
Okay, you're getting Narcan?
Yeah, I have some in the car. I'm running down.
Okay, do you know what they took?
It looks like cocaine on the shelf.
Okay.
But they're all... My officers, up here! All of them!
Ma'am?
Down!
Ma'am?
The cops are here!
Okay, I'm gonna let you go, okay?
Okay.
I was at home and I got summoned by the patrol sergeant about them coming upon 5 people that were deceased in an apartment complex. Eerie. I think what you have is a bunch of family and friends that came here just to have a good time amongst family and friends. And they had a product that they thought was one thing, and it ended up being something else.
Fentanyl is so dangerous, investigators had to wear hazmat suits to go inside the apartment where 5 people were found dead.
The initial shock value of 5 people down in one apartment, your just mind is wondering how. And then hearing kind of the description of the scene that no blood, no guns were at least initially observed. I've never seen anything like that. The serenity of the scene shocked me a little bit. The positions of the deceased, they died where they stood and fell to the ground exactly where they stood. We had a testing kit on scene. They were able to verify that this was a fentanyl overdose. There was somebody that made this concoction and knew what that concoction was, and it cost people their lives.
5 people died from a heavy dose of fentanyl they didn't know they were taking. The tragedy has renewed calls for change to get deadly laced drugs off the street.
At this point, we hadn't seen such an influence or had this type of incident. It opened our eyes to the crisis that's going on, how just lethal it was.
The fentanyl problem in Colorado has just exploded over the last couple of years.
I'm seeing an average of at least 1 or 2 fentanyl-related deaths a day.
Fentanyl is unlike anything I've ever seen, and the impact on the cross-section of society is unlike anything I've ever seen.
The fentanyl problem in Colorado is out of control.
This shit is flooding into the country as a complete weapon of mass destruction. Everybody has their head so far up their ass that they can't see what is actually happening.
It doesn't really seem like the federal government's doing anything to really put an end to this.
I'm pissed off. A lot of people died. They're still dying.
DEA's Rocky Mountain Division covers 4 states. We cover the states of Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. And I'm the acting special agent in charge for DEA's Rocky Mountain Field Division. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. I often say that there's 2 buckets of fentanyl. There's the fentanyl that is made in the pharmaceutical industry. The other bucket of fentanyl, though, that we're dealing with nowadays, and specifically at DEA, is the fentanyl that's being made by the Mexican cartels.
In June of 2020, I lost my 14-year-old son, Alexander, to fentanyl poisoning. He wanted to go hang out with friends, and the following morning, I went to wake him for his orthodontist appointment, and it was too late. And that's the day we learned about fentanyl.
I have never heard of fentanyl before until Ashley died. The day of her service, I see a picture of these 2 little blue pills. I'd never seen them before. To me, they look like 2 pills that were, prescribed medications. I didn't know.
I lost my boys. I won't get them back. I had no idea of what this drug was. And since then, I've just been drinking through a fire hose, learning about this terrible drug that's created this epidemic in America.
Drug cartels are manufacturing and moving fake pills that are designed to look exactly like brand name drugs for pain, ADD, or anxiety.
People are using this stuff like we've never seen because they're addicted, and many people using it are not necessarily going to die the first time. They may use this for 5, 6 months, 7 months, a year, who knows?
It's 1 try and die, 1 pill and die, 1 line and die. It's Russian roulette with 6 bullets in the chamber.
So we see a lot of deaths that are happening. You have rich, you have poor, you have professional athletes. All Americans are being impacted.
During the time that I've been given to share my testimony here, I think it's important to note before I start that in these 5 minutes I'll be speaking that somebody in the United States will die of a drug overdose, and it is almost a 72% chance that during those 5 minutes it will be fentanyl related.
Fentanyl as a substance is an opioid, and opioids are substances that have a physiologic effect on the body. They act at what are called opioid receptors, and when an opioid is in the body, either through a transdermal formulation or oral formulation, they act on the opioid receptors, which are the pain-relieving receptors in the body.
It has similar effects to morphine, but it's 50 times more powerful than morphine. At high levels, fentanyl will basically get the brain to shut off the breathing mechanism, the urge to breathe.
Washington County is almost 2,500 square miles of rural land. We have just under 5,000 residents in the whole county, and it's agricultural based. We have burglaries, thefts, assaults, domestic violence, DUIs. Anything that you see on a bigger scale, we just have it on a smaller scale. Everything you see or hear or read is about the epidemic of fentanyl and deaths that come from it, even small amounts. I know that it's coming at some point. Everything just maybe takes a little longer to get here, but it will affect us here.
We're in the city of Greeley, Colorado. It's the county seat of Weld County. Greeley's got a population of about 140,000 people. It's still a small town, still has a small town feel. A lot of people know each other, and unfortunately, crime is a little on the rise here, but I think 8 of the 10 safest cities in Colorado are in Weld County, so we're driving from a higher income area in Greeley to, quite frankly, a lower income area in Greeley. But the first fentanyl overdose death that comes to mind is actually from the other side of town, the more wealthy side of town. So there's no way of pinpointing and saying, oh, if we just target this neighborhood, we can fix the problem. It cuts all cross sections. It doesn't matter. Everyone's impacted. I don't remember the exact year where I thought Colorado's lost its mind. I want to say it was around the 2018, 2019 timeframe when the legislators said, you know what, we're going to make 4 grams or less of any drug a misdemeanor.
This bill does not make any substance legal that's already illegal at this time. It does not take away the incarceration option. It only deals with petty possession, personal substance addiction.
The fact that 4 grams of fentanyl was legal to possess here in Colorado is lunacy. You're talking about enough fentanyl to kill 1,500 people with 4 grams. 4 packs of sugar. 4 packs of sugar comes to be about 4 grams. And then if you look at that and you know that that has the potency to kill upwards of 1,500 people, that's insanity.
This is a money-saving bill, okay? This has been used in conservative states. This is a liberty bill. Liberty, okay?
It is time for the Colorado State Legislature to join states like Utah, California, Connecticut, Alaska, and Oklahoma in saying that we will not have felony convictions for simple possession.
House Bill 1263 is passed.
So that's crack, heroin, cocaine, whatever you want to have that is an illicit drug. As long as you're under 4 grams of possession, you get a ticket. Literally, you're not detained. And then comes fentanyl, which is now in and prevalent in all of those drugs. It's hard for me to not talk about what we've attempted to do without talking about House Bill 1326, which I was the co-sponsor of with the Speaker of the House as a freshman legislator. What started off as a really simple piece of legislation, 4 pages, no appropriation, ended up 90 pages and $50 million of appropriation. However, the caveat is in there of deniability.
Prior to 2019, the intent required is that you knew it was a controlled substance, that you knew it was illegal.
If you've got somebody and they say, I thought this was just really good cocaine, I didn't know it had fentanyl in it, and you can, that's your defense, you can prove that, then you go back to the standard of 4 grams of possession. So that's what makes that bill really weak.
That is why the Senate took that language out for possession of 1 to 4. And then when the bill came back over here, the decision of the House was not to concur.
And while this is not a perfect bill, it is doing something.
With 35 aye votes, 30 no votes, and 0 excuse, House Bill 1326 is repassed as amended by the first conference committee report.
When it did finally pass, I actually took my name off in the last minutes, primarily because it didn't do enough.
I regrettably and respectfully ask my name be removed as a prime sponsor.
I committed a crime on a family member, which that was bad. I stole from a family that took me and the kids in, and the wife. It was actually her grandmother, just to get high. The fact that I was hurting those people, none of that mattered. At all. I was very far deep into heroin, fentanyl, heroin laced with fentanyl, and I enjoyed every last bit of it. I spent day in, day out doing nothing but chasing the high. It's an amazing feeling. It really is. Everything that you were just worried about, everything you're feeling down about or scared about, upset about, like that, all that's gone. Every last little bit of it's gone. And you just feel wonderful. Fentanyl is a very short high. You went from this is great to now I hate myself, I want to be off of this, but now I'm puking, I'm cold, I'm hot. My stomach hurts, I'm in all this pain. You want to stop 100%. Everybody around you is broken because of what you're doing. It's not only affecting you, it's affecting everybody. I mean, it's a vicious, vicious circle. So vicious.
18. Money. Tomorrow would have been Jaden's 19th birthday. This is what we used to do. That was everything to her, to be with her family. And barbecuing, playing cards, cornhole. Jaden was 16 years old, almost 17, just 3 weeks before her birthday.
Jaden, what are you doing?
Stop!
Okay, Timmy, let's do this. Come on, you just gotta kick the ball.
Is this what I look like at soccer?
We were at a family gathering for her sister's graduation. She'd just graduated high school, but she knew her friends were gonna go off and go to other graduation parties, so she volunteered herself to drive them around and make sure that everybody got home safely and got to where they were staying. And she checked in when she got to her friend's house. We were leaving for a long road trip the next morning, and she had been sick all day and tired, and she wasn't sleeping well. So she was given half of a Percocet. What she was told was a Percocet. They went to bed that night at a friend's house. That morning, we were leaving for our road trip back to North Carolina, and I could not get a hold of her. And I called and called and called, and I sent her 7 text messages. Why are you being so fucking irresponsible? You're in so much trouble. I look at those messages almost daily. And they just say delivered, delivered. But I knew something was wrong because they hadn't been opened. The things you don't think about is the dress that I picked out for her. One of the other hardest decisions of my life was deciding if I would bury her or cremate her. So we decided on cremation so that we could bring her home with us. Now, this is what I had left of her. They told us initially this looks like a homicide because there was no sign. There was no sign of drug use. She was a 16-year-old young girl who went to sleep. Jaden was my little sister. I still can't believe that this is my reality. Like, we would talk about our weddings, and she was gonna be my maid of honor, and we'd talk about our kids growing up and everything in between. And then none of that's gonna happen.
Jaden was so young, so it's really tragic to see like that. That can happen to anybody, but she had a lot of life left, and just something that like she couldn't control happened to her like that.
Sometimes I dream about like things that she would do, and like she would come in my room while I'm playing video games and she would talk to me, and now that doesn't happen anymore. I think fentanyl is a really big problem now with kids that are wanting to try drugs and they don't know like what to start with. I mean, some of them start with vaping and then they go to weed and then they keep experimenting and they get to this drug fentanyl that they don't know what it really is, and some may try it and get the scare of their life, never do it again, and some will never get that chance to try it again.
Jaden was absolutely murdered. Accidental fentanyl intoxication, poisoning, is not an overdose. She was a 16-year-old girl who was murdered by poison. I don't even know that angry can describe what this is. How is this happening?
The fentanyl, the methamphetamine, it's being imported. It's coming across our borders. You know, I-76 is a corridor from the metro area, ties into I-80 just across the state line in Nebraska. And then we have Highway 71, also known as the Port to Plains Highway, coming up all the way south, running north all the way up through Nebraska. And honestly, I don't know where it stops.
Well, everybody around here knows that I-76 is a main corridor for drugs going to Chicago. I-76, I-80 corridor. I've had friends of mine in law enforcement, my own brothers in law enforcement. There is a steady stream right down the interstate, and I would imagine that it's going on right now as we speak.
Back in 2022, we had the biggest powdered fentanyl seizure at the time in North America. I think it still holds that record. It's one of many.
The drugs are coming from Mexico, and that's what I'm hearing from my sheriffs all across the district.
I think the cartels view the loss of life of a Colorado citizen as the cost of doing business. For every one customer that they lose to death, they're trying to get 10 more. And that's how potent fentanyl is. They can pull in the next 10 customers. They can pull in the next 20 addicts. And that's how they offset killing Coloradans.
Us being so close to Mexico, it's easy. Things come through the border and then they come up through the major cities and dispersed around. So the most popular form that we see for fentanyl is actually something like this. These blue tablets, and they have like an M30 stamp, so it'll have M on one side and 30 on the other. It might be in something that's marketed to look like hydrocodone or Vicodin.
That fentanyl is made by a pharmaceutical industry, quality control. Every bottle that comes out from the industry is exactly the same. DEA is laser focused on the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco cartel that are most responsible for putting this poison on our streets. And when it comes to them, there is no quality control. There is no legitimate medical use. And every pill that they're putting out could contain a potential lethal dose.
So I will say a lot of them they make now are pretty good, but one of the first things that we can look for is the color. And so these typically are blue, and you can see either one of these colors. The other thing we'll look for is kind of how good the press is. So sometimes you can see ridges around the side where they didn't have a good seal on the press. But these are really, really good tablets, the way that these were pressed. They find tablet presses on the internet. So I'm making fake M30 tablets. It's pretty easy. I need to adjust a few settings on this and I can make it better, but the coloring is pretty good. On some of these, you can see an M on this side, you can see a 30 on the other. Thickness is okay. You can make probably thousands of tablets a day with this. So there are a lot of doses in this. Usually with fentanyl kilos, they're not typically 100%, but they are higher purity than what you'd get in like a tablet or something like that, because this is what they're using and then cutting it down, putting it into tablets and putting it into however they're gonna end up selling it. But yeah, there are potentially a lot of lethal doses in this. I'm glad it ended up here. I'm glad that, you know, we're the ones who are dealing with it instead of, you know, it ending out on the streets, but I know that we only see a fraction of what actually makes it through.
These cartels are getting their precursor chemicals out of China, shipped into Mexico. And the moment that those pills cross our border, come into our country, you start seeing the exponential rise just in terms of the profits that they can make the further that they get away from the border. And as it comes up the I-25 freeway into the state of Colorado, no part of our state is immune from fentanyl trafficking. And these cartels, they are motivated by one thing, which is greed.
The impact that fentanyl's having here in Mason County is immeasurable. I-70, it's an artery, a drug distribution artery. There's a tremendous amount of narcotics that flow from the west coast to the east through this area via I-70. Based on my training and experience, I've worked narcotics almost exclusively for the last 11 years. All indicators are that fentanyl is coming from the southern border.
We're gonna go up here to these crosses. I haven't been there in quite some time. They've overlooked our property, and in the 14 years that we've lived here, we've celebrated a lot of good times. There were a lot of sad times too. My daughter's service was here, my mother's services for our friends, but Ashley in particular. This is Ashley. It's her high school senior picture. This is Daniel, Ashley's son, my oldest grandson. He was just a little bit older than this when Ashley died. She was my first child, so my first love, eternal love, right? The beginning for me was that phone call on June 11th in 2018. I remember not sleeping well, actually having the worst night of my life, and staying in late, to sleep in late that morning and not going to work because I felt ill from my night. And my husband left, and I told him I'd be into work soon, and then the phone rang. And it was Ashley's father. And he told me that she was gone and that she'd taken something, and it killed her. She suffered from alcohol. It was an addiction. Ashley suffered from pancreatitis from the alcohol. And usually the hospital would send her home with 2 or 3 pain pills at the most. And they made her feel sick. She didn't usually take them, didn't even really know where they were. And if she did take one, she would take a half. So for her to take a half a pill that evening given to her by, her boyfriend, doesn't seem unusual to me. But she used that half a pill and it took her life. And her boyfriend also took a pill that night. I believe he probably carried her to the car when she went down, and they were both found in a running car, poisoned. My daughter could not be revived. He was. And spoke with the police, told them where the drugs came from. And I think there were many reasons associated to him taking his life the next day. Through this process of investigation and finding out who this distributor was, we found out about so many more that died from one person bringing a bag of pills into Grand Junction, Colorado.
I used to deal drugs, used to deal fentanyl. So when I started selling fentanyl, it was the M30s. I had some basic rules that I tried to stick to as best as possible. And those were no minors and no first timers. So anybody under the age of 18, I did not fuck with at all. Personally, like if someone that I was selling to sold to them, that was on them, not on me.
My son had some pretty severe health issues that he went through in life and became addicted to medication.
My white count's come down a little bit, my infection come down a little bit, but still gotta be watching it. Still breaking fevers. But it's calling to let you everyone know. Have a good night, be safe. Trying to get better.
And as a result of that, when the time for that to end started, he went to the streets to replace it and quickly got a hold of fentanyl. He didn't ask for fentanyl. I believe he ordered oxy and it took his life that quick. I mean, we could track his phone to within an hour of when he died. I am angry. I know who sold it to him. His phone shows who sold it to him. And even with that information, no arrest could be made. No connection could put that person selling him that pill.
I actually didn't get caught for drugs. So I was being pretty stupid on the side because I had a problem stealing cars. I was in prison for almost 2 years. When I got out of prison, I went straight to sober living and started going to Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Crystal Meth Anonymous, Heroin Anonymous. If I say something that'll help somebody get off of drugs or like try and change their life around, then I'm doing good. Like that's basically all I want to do.
Five boys, they were great. They really were.
No freaking way. I was right. I told you.
I'm not going to paint them to be angels. They were two wild little boys growing up.
How did that feel?
Andrew, my oldest, was 21 when he passed, and he was my mad scientist. This kid could build all sorts of things.
All right, Andrew made his camping stove with a pop can.
Two pop cans.
Two pop cans and a penny. Pretty cool.
And a thumbtack.
Stephen, my youngest, was 19 when he passed, and he was my academic kid. Graduated with a 4.2 GPA plus, an AA degree right out of high school. What we were able to put together is that it seems that my youngest went to go get some oxy. He went and picked it up from a party, just a handoff, but came back to his apartment where he lived with his brother. And it was about 4 a.m. They ended up taking this oxy, and they weren't found till later that evening. And they found them lying side by side in their bed, just like they were sleeping. My one son had his arm under his head, just like it was when I'd go in and kiss him goodnight and whisper, "I love you," in his ear. That's how they said they found him.
I first heard about Matt when we were all up in Denver fighting for legislation on fentanyl. Somebody told me about a guy that lived in my district, Matt, who had lost both of his sons. Eventually, I was able to meet Matt and got to know him, and he's a pretty special guy. He's very committed to the fight, and it's because of the impact that fentanyl's had on his family.
I know nothing will bring my boys back to me, but I owe it to them to share their story so we can save some by speaking out, raising awareness, and enacting legislation to turn the tide of this deadly evil that is destroying our youth and our nation.
All the way, all the way. I'll do this as soon as you spin around.
I'm not angry. I am just heartbroken.
Happy birthday to you. Good job.
Yeah, you're welcome. I love you. I wanted to know how this all transpired. Where did they get the drug? But sitting with the detectives, they just didn't have a lot of evidence.
Devin was born with a multitude of illnesses, life-threatening diseases that caused extreme chronic pain throughout his entire body. Devin had had almost 80 procedures and surgeries before he turned 18. And then when Devin turned 19, he aged out of his medical care. And that's when Devin went to the street and started purchasing medication for the pain that he was in. Devin was murdered by fentanyl in 2021. We went shopping that day. His friend texted him and he said, "Hey, can you do me a favor?" And when we got to the apartment, his friend was already there waiting for him. They went one way, I went the other. I went in Michael's, I had the stuff that we needed, and all of a sudden I got a text. And it said, "Devin, be like this." And I was like, "Be like what? What do you mean?" And we had just refilled his prescription, and he was on a lot of meds, so I thought maybe he had taken one of his night meds, maybe something had happened, but they just kept responding, "Devin, be like this." And I didn't understand what that meant. I'm trying to call, no one's answering. So immediately I dropped everything. I just dropped everything and I ran out of the store. I pulled up in front of the ambulance. I went running inside, and the fire department, there was a guy standing in front of Devin's door. And Devin was laying on his bedroom floor and his lips were blue. When I spoke to the investigator that was originally assigned to Devin's case, she told me that the District Attorney of Colorado Springs will absolutely never prosecute one of these cases. Never. That the kid that sold Devin the pill did absolutely nothing wrong. That my son chose to take that pill, and therefore it was my son's fault. I'm very angry. I'm very angry.
There are a lot of challenges with prosecuting fentanyl-related overdose death cases. It's similar to any other drug that's being distributed in what those investigations might look like. But now we're talking about we have to tie it back, the death back to the fentanyl that this particular person distributed to now somebody that's no longer with us. We're by far leading the state down here in the 4th Judicial District on the number of cases that are being prosecuted. But it takes that systemic-wide approach to being successful in these cases to put forth the investigative resources necessary, the prosecution resources necessary to really come together and really serve the public. But if a community really commits itself to going after these dealers, we can do it.
This is the refrigerator where we keep the bodies until the funeral home will pick them up, or when they first come in until we do an autopsy or other type of examination. I'm seeing an average of at least 1 or 2 fentanyl-related deaths a day.
This is all the cases that we pulled, and I'm just looking for the ones that have the blue pills, the fentanyl pills.
So here in Denver, we do about 1,000 autopsies a year. Of those, nearly half involve drug overdoses. And so of the 500 or so drug overdose deaths, 2/3 at least involve fentanyl plus or minus other drugs. The average person receiving fentanyl in the hospital will have drug levels of 1 to 4. The overdose deaths that we are seeing, the levels are 20, 30, 40. Just the other day I saw a postmortem level of 320. That amount of fentanyl is going to overwhelm the body and basically shut down respiration very quickly, seconds to minutes.
Identified with fingerprints, next of kin is aware, body is here, we have choreo and SCL records uploaded.
A few years ago, when fentanyl still was kind of novel in Denver, there were some pretty credible stories where people thought they were buying oxycodone. But we see in our practice every day, for the most part, people that end up here in the autopsy suite were actually seeking fentanyl. They were purchasing fentanyl. They knew they were buying fentanyl. So while there may be the exceptional case where the parent's story is credible, that their son or daughter thought they were buying something else, the vast majority of fentanyl deaths that come here through the Denver Medical Examiner's Office involve people who knew exactly what they were buying.
Hannah and I talked about drugs. Hannah said, I will never do fentanyl because I see what it does to people.
Ready? I can do a magic trick.
Oh no.
You can't see me, right?
No. She went to a friend's house one night and she came home at 6 the next morning. So about 10:15, I went to work. I was gone for 3 hours, 3.5 hours. And I'm driving home and I'm going, she hasn't called. She hasn't texted. She always gets back with me. Try to call, no answer. So the fear set in. And, of course you hope that she's just sleeping. I didn't hear her phone. So I got home and I just swung open the door and I yelled her name. And I would go upstairs to open the door, and her foot that she had a brace on was blocking the door, so I couldn't get it open all the way. And finally I had to push it. She was lying face down on her bed. And I just started screaming, and I touched the middle of her back was the only place that was left that was warm. I turned over and I could already see purple. My daughter wasn't an addict. She got what she thought was a Xanax from a friend.
My daughter was murdered, and the status of the case is closed. My daughter, Alessandra Annette, she was a tiny little thing, real tiny. Allie suffered from, they said it was bipolar, but it was more, it varied. But she also suffered from anxiety. And so she had been taking medication and it wasn't working as well as it had before. She went out with a friend one night, and the people they went to see, the guy they went to see, had offered her a Xanax. And she brought it home with her. It was probably about 2:30 or 3 in the afternoon, and I hadn't heard from her. And so I was like, well, I'll take her with me. I had to go run an errand, and I said, I'll go see if she wants to go with me. And her door was locked, and I, of course, called her name, and then her brother came immediately and unlocked the door and started to give her CPR, and he called 911. I kind of already knew she was gone.
I'm angry some days. I try my hardest to channel that into better emotions. More sympathetic, more positive, whatever you want to call it. She loved animals.
Hi, big mouth.
And that was actually how I came to love the cat that I care for now. It was her cat. I wasn't at all a cat person. I made fun of cat people. And now he's my little buddy. I'm thankful for him every day, and that's one of the things I remember about her, is just how much she saw the good in people and saw the good in animals, and wanted to share that with everyone around her.
I know the person that gave Allie the pill, and I know an extensive amount about him because I investigated it myself. I can't even, it shuts me down how pissed I am. The elected officials in this state have buried the issue with fentanyl. They have done little to nothing.
We need harsher criminal penalties against those that are poisoning people, and that's exactly what this bill does.
I really view the governor's efforts on fentanyl to be half-hearted at best. I think he could have weighed in stronger on what really amounts to a public safety emergency.
Do criminal penalties deter everybody from crime? If they did, we wouldn't have crime. They don't. But they're a tool in the toolbox that prosecutors need and that law enforcement needs to make sure that somebody who's poisoning community members is locked up for a long, long time.
The Arapahoe County coroner says the fentanyl crisis in Colorado and across the country is unlike anything she's ever seen before.
Sheriff's office! Fentanyl is a problem in Arapahoe County, most definitely.
Hey, where's she at? She's right on the ground.
What did she take?
She was drinking and she took one of the blue pills.
But it is a problem across our state.
Hey.
We've seen the multicolored pills now, and that's all a disguise to get people to think that it's okay. It won't harm me. It looks like Skittles or it looks like Pez. I can take those and I'll be okay. It's just one good time. Well, one good time is killing people.
The governor is responsible for the best interest of the people. He is responsible for all Coloradans and their well-being and their health. I mean, you know, plain and simple.
Colorado's become a major transit point for the deadly drug.
It's seared in my mind. It's something that'll never leave me. I could tell you where everybody was and just the shock and awe of seeing that.
Those 5 individuals who died in Commerce City, they are the victims of the broader soft on crime, soft on criminal approach that the Colorado ruling Democrats have adopted across our state. We need to understand that with the potency of these narcotics, even very small dosages are potentially lethal to dozens and dozens of people.
I was addicted to fentanyl, and right now I'm actually in recovery. Fentanyl, it's in weed, cartridges, like wax cartridges, THC cartridges that are in those. The pills, obviously, cocaine, ecstasy, just almost every drug you can find on the street. So it was really easy to get. Say, like, if I didn't have like a plug to go to or somebody's number, I would just go downtown or to areas I know, and I would find it just like that. Just on the streets.
The most common way fentanyl is used right now here in Denver and probably in most large cities is by inhaling it. Our average individual who comes through here in a fentanyl-related death has been taking the blue pill, crumbling it up, putting it on aluminum foil, heating the aluminum foil, and inhaling it through a straw. It gets into the body much more quickly through the lungs than it could ever get into the body by taking it orally and having to go through the gastrointestinal tract. For self-preservation, I'm hoping we can get a handle on the fentanyl crisis. I would like nothing more than to come into work in the morning and find out I have had no overdose deaths overnight, that I have no fentanyl-related deaths for several days, for a week. Right now, that's not realistic.
We are seeing fentanyl here in Boulder, Colorado. It's something we're dealing with almost on a daily basis.
Send you a follow-up to the earlier call at Briarwood.
When we look at the biggest concentration of overdoses happen in the city, it's in and around the Central Park area, which is downtown Boulder, close to Pearl Street, not far from CU campus. It's a beautiful place. Boulder Creek runs right through the middle of it. I remember coming up here as a kid and tubing in the creek. But that's been a large concentration of where our overdoses have been, typically around encampments. The tents are technically illegal. You cannot have a tent in the city. They're subject to citation for that. So it's not uncommon for us to have overdoses down in this area along the creek path. If they are abusing narcotics, they're probably just getting enough for a single use or to be able to get high. But what we see is people purposely come down here to sell to areas like this that are set up, and then they'll go around to multiple different areas and sell narcotics. And so our goal, obviously, you can't be using narcotics out here in a public space, but our goal is to really figure out who is bringing the drugs here to sell. Currently, we're having at least 20 fatal overdoses a year in the city of Boulder, city of about 100,000 people. That's unacceptable. Really, we have to decide as a community where we put our money, what resources we're going to provide to people. That's truly the heart of this issue, is education, funding, treatment, and really law enforcement and arrests should be at the very low end of that. It's still a tool in the tool belt, but if we get these things right, if we make these things more robust, The cops become much less in this. It's not going to be solved overnight, but we've got to get our priorities straight.
The fentanyl problem is growing, and it's growing at an alarming rate. From here, the drugs can go anywhere in the United States, including Colorado. Last year, our Texas Department of Public Safety Crime Lab analyzed over 70 pounds of fentanyl.
These are fake and these are real.
This year, they're on track to nearly double that. There is a demand for those drugs, and the cartels and criminal organizations are doing their best to fill that demand by creating the supply.
Right now in America, we have the worst crisis in the history of America in regards to the Mexican cartels flooding the country with deadly fentanyl and other substances. What's really scary is that the Chinese criminal networks are right now doing the majority of the money laundering for the cartels.
China's sending over these precursors to the Mexican cartels, who are then making this fentanyl to be brought over into the United States. The cartels are then making a bigger profit after they turn this into fentanyl, into pills, put it in other drugs.
Well, the president of Mexico says fentanyl is an American problem.
President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said Thursday the addictive drug is not produced or consumed in Mexico.
México, repito, el país que más introduce fentanilo a Estados Unidos. Yo sostengo que llega más fentanilo de manera directa a Estados Unidos y a Canadá que lo que llega a México.
We were down at the border just seeing the immigration problem with just mass people coming in, which is, to me, a smokescreen. When there's that many people coming in, it's going to give way to fentanyl, because if the Border Patrol is preoccupied, it's going to open up access for the cartel to actually use the Border Patrol's low resources to move more fentanyl in, because the Border Patrol can no longer man checkpoints.
The Mexican cartels have an unlimited supply of fentanyl coming into our country, so we have to shut off that main valve in Mexico immediately.
CBP officers working at El Paso ports of entry seizing a combined 73 pounds of fentanyl and meth.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection says officers seized 6.5 tons of methamphetamine valued at $117 million in a single search on Sunday.
The cartels are definitely laughing at us because the victims, they're the ones that are paying the ultimate price, and the cartels are just counting their money with everything they're getting. I mean, that's what we're giving them right now, is a free business platform that is killing people.
We've been trying to declare the Mexican cartels as terrorists for many years, because that's what they are. They were a drug cartel, they evolved into a transnational criminal organization. The problem is the bureaucrats in Washington didn't want to offend the Mexicans.
Connor was born in December of 1997 in Austin, Texas.
He was outgoing, had a lot of friends.
He thought deeply, and I think, like me, I think he overthought a lot of things. And I think that he fell into a depression with the parents' divorce and all of that, because he was around 12 when that happened.
So his friends, he and his friends did take Xanax recreationally. So, it was just a matter of time before he or one of his friends or all of them got Xanax that was, laced with fentanyl. And unfortunately, that's what killed him.
He knew better. We talked about the fentanyl thing. I would never do that, Mom. Never say never, because he didn't know that's what it was. And sure enough, it was pure fentanyl.
As I studied more about this after Connor's death, I realized what an absolute epidemic this thing is. It makes COVID look like a joke compared to what this is doing to families in this country. And what was shocking to me is it doesn't really seem like the federal government's doing anything to really put an end to this.
This is my beautiful boy, Max. Max died at 18 years old, a month and a half shy of his 19th birthday.
What do we want? Action! When do we want it? Now!
It's emotional to be here today. It's empowering to be here today. I'm humbled by all the amazing, brave, strong people behind me that have organized this 3rd annual rally for fentanyl poisoning to make a difference.
And right now, we know absolutely, we know the stats, right? 100,000 Americans died from drugs. The majority of those from fentanyl. We know that the leading cause of death among those 18 to 45 is fentanyl.
These are not overdoses, they're poisonings.
I was waiting in the undertow, set adrift with featherweight like bows.
My country failed me. The United States of America has failed my son and thousands, hundreds and thousands of victims to fentanyl poisoning. Colorado failed my son on multiple levels.
Wake the hell up, White House! And by the way, I don't care about he's a Democrat, because I guarantee you there's some Democrats here, there's independents, there's white, there's black.
When we go to Congress, we're trying to educate members of Congress and the public about how bad and what the situation is. The ranking member from Mississippi starts attacking us.
But if it's anything like the report Republicans released immediately before their last hearing, this one will be rife with errors and full of extreme MAGA rhetoric.
And he must have said MAGA extremist movement maybe 7 times.
The character of the Homeland Security Committee has fundamentally changed from a bipartisan, solutions-focused committee to a platform for the most extreme MAGA schemes. The majority is stuck in a southwest border Groundhog Day. The majority has held a variation of this hearing 9 times.
So I sat there, I was really upset.
Last thing, without border security, we have no country. Thank you very much. And for the ranking member, sorry we're wasting your time.
I now recognize... Hold on a minute. Why you reference me?
Because in your opening statement, you said that this was a charade, it was a waste of time, whatever words you used, and the kids are dying at Reckitt-Lells, and I don't appreciate that.
We were there to educate. We weren't there to wave any political flag, okay? And it was very insulting. They're supposed to be helping America.
Fentanyl, it's got to go! Fentanyl, it's got to go! When do we want it? Action! When do we want it? Now!
I'm very angry. I'm angry that the dealer has received little to no punishment. The dealer was arrested in November for distribution of more than 50 grams.
Court documents obtained by CBS 4 showed the DEA was investigating him the whole time after being tipped off that he was looking for a truck driver to bring narcotics into Colorado from the border.
He was never questioned about my son's death. Max didn't want to die. Max's blood is on the hands of this country, on the hands of Colorado, and something has to change. Our country needs change. The state of Colorado needs change.
The social justice legislators put criminals over victims, even victims that die from fentanyl.
When I think back to Senate Bill 109, we really wanted to focus on the drug dealers. So if you were sold a drug that somebody overdosed on, that you were going to be penalized with a Class 1 drug felony.
That piece of legislation made it over to the House. It got pushed off the calendar until literally 3 days before we were out of session. The testimony started at 11 p.m. on a Friday night before we're out of session on Monday. It was killed by activists in the party in power to have that bill be heard. They so did not want that legislation that narrowly made it out of the Senate to come to the House.
I was a Logan County commissioner in Logan County for 6 years. And I had a Department of Human Service director that had to call me one time, and when he called me to tell me that some parents had passed away from a drug overdose, we had to take the kids. And so what does that do to the kids? You know, and it's pretty emotional that you have to deal with that as a commissioner, and you worry about those kids. Because I have kids of my own, and every kid deserves parents to have. When we had to do that, it was probably the toughest thing that I've ever had to deal with in my life.
Fentanyl, it's a whole different beast, a whole different animal, and now they're lacing it with other exotic drugs. It gets them hooked. One-time use changes the brain. All the things that we as so-called normal adults would find as award centers in our brain. Raising family, being prosperous, providing, going to the movies, social things with family. That is wiped out with one-time use, and the only thing that is linked in the brain is, where's my next hit?
During the process of my daughter's investigation, I saw the arrest take place. The police were arresting these distributors. I sat in courts looking for the distributor myself, and I saw the same people on the blotter day after day after day, and I watched them walk out of those courts. So it was not that law enforcement was not doing their job at that level. They don't have laws to back them.
I want to thank really everyone who worked on this effort to save lives in Colorado, to make Colorado safer for everybody from fentanyl poisoning in particular, which is the subject of this bill.
I'm proud of a few of the laws that we signed. We're one of the first states to actually add a criminal penalty around the pill presses that are used to, in many ways, what is the most pernicious form, again, to lace other drugs with fentanyl. So we have a specific felony penalty around that.
When fentanyl first got here, the only real strength that we had in prosecution was sending these cases to the federal government to prosecute, because they had a mandatory 20 years to life on a drug overdose death distribution charge. We now have that here, but it took a Herculean effort to get there. And it came with some really bad aspects of that law. We have now what they call the Good Samaritan Clause in the Fentanyl Accountability and Prevention Act. What it really is if a dealer kills somebody with their fentanyl, they stay on scene, they answer some questions to the police about what had happened, they're now immune from prosecution.
So, my view on the laws is actually kind of, I would put it as interesting, because I do have a criminal record a mile long, but most of those charges I got out of because I know the laws, I know the loopholes in the laws, and like, if the cops don't do everything by the book, you can get those charges dropped easily.
The Colorado laws on fentanyl I think they're pure bullshit. Straight up. Why am I gonna stop selling if I know if I get caught, it's not a big deal? You're gonna give me probation, you're gonna give me a fine. Who cares?
We are not passing the kind of tough on crime legislation that sends a signal to the street, not just in Colorado, but around the country, that says if you're gonna peddle dope that kills people, then you're going to prison and you're gonna pay.
This drug dealer, he was arrested in November of 21.
In jail now, his cellmate overdosed. While being questioned about it, Guerra Carrillo admits to being a fentanyl dealer and allegedly connected to 4 deaths.
He should have been put away. If he would have been in jail where he belonged, my son might be alive today. Until we start prosecuting and putting these people away, that there's some accountability. How many more lives are going to be lost? to fentanyl and to the crime that's happening in our state of Colorado and in our country.
Alex was a very adventuresome kid, very experimental by nature.
You got this, Alex.
June 2020 comes along and Alex is having a funky few days, and so I asked him, like, what's up, dude? Something's going on? Are you using something? And we sat down at the kitchen table and he proceeded to tell us, and this is the short version of that story. I wanted to experiment with Oxy. I got some from a dealer on Snapchat. That following morning, I called the treatment place. He went out that night after 9 o'clock. He came home, we said goodnight, and that was the last time I saw him alive. It wasn't until 2 months after he died that I was having lunch with one of his friends and I asked them, do you know where he got it? And they gave me the person's Snapchat information. 2 months after that, a mom in the community contacted me and said, are you this person? She's like, I got some pictures to show you. That night, she sends me pictures of this drug dealer on Snapchat talking about my son. Her son died 2 weeks after Alex from the same dealer on Snapchat. And from those texts, I learned that there's another young person that died in this dealer's apartment 2 weeks before Alex.
This past year, DEA's put out a number of public safety alerts specific to social media and how drug traffickers are selling fentanyl pills online. And the reason is that we're seeing these traffickers sell it on every possible thing that you can picture in terms of the marketplaces on social media, whether it's Facebook Marketplace, Instagram, Craigslist.
Devin was on his bedroom floor, right at his desk where he died. Sitting at the desk was his computer open with messages on Facebook to and from the kid that sold him the pills with the address, a map dot to the place that my son had gone to, with the amount that the pills would be. All this was open on his computer.
So much in our personal lives for legal business, we're using Venmo, PayPal, Zelle to pay for these things. And that's the same thing that's happening with illicit drugs. You can make a payment online, have it delivered to your house, and sadly, somebody from the comfort of their bedroom could be ordering these fentanyl pills and have them delivered there.
The social media companies definitely have a hand in these drug deaths.
They're getting it as easy as ordering a pizza. This is not okay. Snapchat is part of why all of these kids are dying, why all of these kids are on these signs, and why we're all here.
So as parents, I think we really need to start taking back the power from these companies to really create that wave of change, getting our kids off these apps or not letting them get started to begin with.
Sir! State Patrol! You gotta wake up!
Did he take anything?
I think he was smoking fentanyls.
Did anybody see him take anything? Who gave him the Narcan?
Sir! You gotta wake up!
I don't remember a week that's gone by recently where I don't read in our daily logs that our officers have saved people with Narcan.
1 dose administered.
We usually beat the paramedics. 235. Somebody here did give him 1 dose of Narcan that I can see. I'm going to be giving him another one right now.
I gave him Narcan, possible fentanyl.
I feel something there.
Oh, here we go.
Do another one if you got another one. And these cops have at least carried 2 or 3 doses on their person.
You gotta wake up!
Go ahead, get another one.
It starts as a welfare check. It starts as a person down.
Do you have any more?
It starts as a suspicious person acting strange. Many of those cases end with a Narcan use.
I gave Narcan. He's got a pulse, right?
No shock advised.
He's got a pulse. Let's get
Provide
so
chest compression and rescue breath.
Narcan is a great drug in countering the effects of opioids, like fentanyl, like heroin, like morphine.
Wake up! Come on, stay with us, stay with us. There you go, there you go. Sit up. There you go, there you go. Sit up for me.
However, somebody else has to administer the Narcan to the person who's in distress. So if somebody is using fentanyl alone, all the Narcan sitting around the room will not do anything for them.
There you are, there you are. You're good.
So I was with a friend actually, and I started like withdrawing with my friend and stuff. So I was at my dad's house and I went down to the laundry room, and as soon as I got to the laundry room, I smoked like 2 pills, and all of a sudden I remember my dad smacking me, waking me up, and I was on the laundry room floor, and that's all I remember. And then my mother brought me Narcan, and I did the Narcan, and then from there I was fine. But I do feel lucky to be alive. I honestly think if my dad didn't find me when he did and start smacking me, trying to wake me up, 5 minutes went by, I probably would have been dead.
So we're pulling up to this little church. It's independently ran church that has agreed to have a Narcan dispenser in front of their building. So this is the Narcan dispenser. Anybody can get one. It's Narcan, free to the public. It's 2 doses in there. There's 4 boxes left inside the dispenser. And then there's an opioid overdose card that goes with it.
We don't want to be out there using Narcan every day. We'll do it. It's part of our duty, but we'd rather be out there actually trying to figure out and arresting the people bringing the drugs here into town.
On April 11th, 2019, I was getting ready to take my kids to school, and I received a call from a friend back home where I grew up that told me they found my brother dead from a fentanyl poisoning. And then after that, I had to call my parents and tell them that their son was dead. After my brother's death, I was able to work through the beginning stages of grief. I decided to work in a position with a local police department, and from that point forward, I connected with a lot of other families. We did a community event, and the focus of that event was raising awareness about fentanyl, and we partnered with local community organizations. They didn't know about it, and once they started listening and finding out, and one thing led to another, and the next thing you know, we couldn't do enough of these presentations.
We have to do more.
4 grams, about the weight of a sugar packet, is enough to kill 2,000 people with fentanyl. That is way too much.
And that's why I go into the schools. I want to be able to share the story. I want to be able to educate the parents and make them aware. And the people I work with in advocacy want to do the same thing. But there's so much work to be done.
We don't want to see these casual users charged with a felony. Our heart is really for them to get help, to get off their addiction.
There's a lot of communities that don't want to talk about it. And now that it's starting to affect them, they're starting to talk about it. And I think it's bad everywhere. It's not limited to how much money you have, what school you go to, what your skin color is. None of that matters. If you get that drug and you think you're taking a Xanax and you pop it and you die because it was fentanyl, it can happen to anyone, and it has.
Kids are dying. Recreational users are dying. The elderly are dying because their scripts are being pulled. I give the whole country an F when it comes to it, because as a whole, we are not doing the job. We need to come together.
This process is frustrating because we really do see there's an increase in deaths. As we analyze how we're in this situation and how we got here, kind of a thing, well, honestly, it's come from one-party rule in the state of Colorado. Legitimately, one party has all of the levers of power in this state.
I feel that they would probably rather legalize most everything rather than deal with the problem.
My message overall to my colleagues would be that we need to take a two-pronged approach. The first one is the people that want help, we need to get them help.
Wake up, baby, wake up.
Breathe.
Wake up. Okay, there you go.
All the way across the state. And then the second one, for the crimes that they are committing to other people, we need to hold drug dealers accountable.
I think it can be done, but it would take incredible leadership from my Democrat colleagues and incredible leadership in my party, and I'm ready to step up and do it.
I think our eyes are open. We're trying to get people to hear this message that we're seeing.
Fentanyl transcends partisanship and ideology, gentlemen and women. This is a totally different problem.
We just continue to raise our voices. We're getting somewhere.
When my son died, there was only 271 deaths in 2017 for fentanyl overdoses. And now we're looking at thousands now.
If I could speak with Governor Polis, I would tell him this could have been your son. This could have been your nephew. This could be your family, as easy as it was mine.
If nothing changes when it comes to how we approach fentanyl, that number will continue to increase until we see 500,000 Americans killed by fentanyl every year.
If we don't stop fentanyl, how are we going to stop the next one? Because the next one's coming, and the next one after that one's coming. It's going to get worse.
For our own children. In America, right here is a war.
It's just going to continue to snowball.
I thought 100,000 Americans killed by fentanyl would be the trigger, and it wasn't.
If we don't do anything, this is going to kill off an entire generation.
People are going to continue to die. They're going to die at a faster rate.
If we don't do anything about this, they win. If you have a kid, you're at risk. They're at risk.
It's not a red or a blue issue, it's a red, white, and blue issue. All Americans are being impacted.
I have firsthand witnessed this in a way most people have not. I brought my community down. I hurt people. I was the uneducated man in the kitchen playing chemist with drugs I knew absolutely nothing about, just like these drug dealers are doing right now when they're mixing every drug on the market with fentanyl, and they're killing the people we love.
This is a pain that I would never wish on anybody, but it's coming. It's just gonna get worse.